Hey everybody, Josh Lopresto here again, VP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, and today I'm joined here with Derek Siller, who is a solution architect with an awesome security background for Flexential. Derek, I appreciate you being on with us today.
I appreciate it too. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's jump into this here. I want to give people an opportunity to know you, right? Because the goal of this is we want our partners to understand the portfolio, but the people that they're working with. So could you get us into a little bit of background yourself, prior roles, things you've done leading up to this and kind of some of your experience?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the IT industry for just over 15 years with companies like Iron Mountain in their digital business. They do a lot of work around, digital archiving, email archiving, storage, data storage, things of that nature. And then I spent a good deal of time at SunGuard Availability Services, and they were widely regarded as the industry leader in disaster recovery as a service. So that's using, cloud-based technologies to manage a customer's replication of a critical application environment to a hardened facility for the purposes of DR testing and recovery. And that carried over into my role here at Flexential, where I'm a solution architect for our channel sales organization. So I'm going out and talking to our partners about Flexential and our cloud portfolio and security portfolio and co-location and our suite of data centers, across North America, and how we can help to kind of design these hybrid IT solutions for customers that are looking to do IT transformations.
I love it. And we never want security, obviously, to be an afterthought. I mean, it's something our partner, we've beat them over the head talking about security, realizing how important it is. What are some of the layers? How do we have those conversations? Can you talk to me about, anybody that may be familiar with Flexential, where, hey, maybe I've worked with these guys before as they were via West or Peak 10 and it was co-location, right? Talk to me about what are some of the product sets that you see that are beneficial that you're able to help with within the Flexential portfolio from a security perspective as you're in this big variety of different architectures.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways to answer that, right? So, within our four walls for our co-location services and our cloud managed services portfolio, we have a variety of embedded, security solutions, right? It could be our network that has, always on DDoS mitigation and prevention with a 100% uptime guarantee. Around that, we've got a managed security stack from, third-party technology partners like BAE and AlertLogic that we apply a managed service layer on top of that can do things like, intrusion detection and intrusion prevention services, right? Of course, we have a variety of, managed firewall solutions. Customers can bring their own firewall in. Obviously, since our kind of core DNA is our co-location services from, our history with Via West and with Peak 10 combining together to make Flexential. But we have, newer services as well that I think are kind of relevant in this environment that we're dealing, with today with shelter in place and just beginning to come out of that, from the COVID pandemic, where we have a variety of security solutions around remote workforce, right? Where we can, kind of help our clients, tailor. And there's a whole lot of sort of things there that you kind of dig into and unpack that we can help our clients with in terms of, how are they hardening their security posture specifically for their remote workforces? And I'll pause here for a second and, we can kind of maybe dig into that a little bit. But the use case that is driving it, I think, is interesting, which is, and I'm sure you've probably seen this, there's a lot of industry analyst information coming out from like the Forresters and the Gartners and so forth that are talking about what the new normal post-COVID is going to look like, right? And there's a lot of companies that might not bring back a lot of their white-collar workforce into an in-office setting, right? If maybe 10 to 15% of a corporate client's workforce was working in a virtual capacity before, that percentage may be as high as 30, 40, or 50%, going forward, right? So what do you do as IT leaders then to make sure that you're supporting that remote workforce properly, and also making sure that they have a good, kind of security practice to support them?
You brought up a couple of really good points. So I do want to unpack that. I want to go into really each of those three things and talk about how, when partners are in these discussions with their customers and people are looking at digital transformation, either for the sake of recognizing what the new norm looks like, or somebody going through or was already going through digital transformation. Let's go through each of those three a little bit here. So let's talk about DDoS, right? We understand the portfolio that you have. You allow for a all data center strategy, a hybrid strategy. And we were talking to Carl, one of your cloud architects, before this, and how we can help at any piece of that strategy and layer and manage the whole process. So I want to jump in first there, talking about DDoS. I think fundamentally our partners understand what DDoS is, but can you talk to me a little bit about, if I'm making a move and Flexential is part of that move, where and how does your DDoS product fit into that?
Yeah. So once you're behind, our firewall and within our network, DDoS is inclusive in all the services that you're going to buy from us. So take one of our cloud environments. One of our key value propositions is, kind of through that IT transformation, we can help you with, kind of the right application workload for the right type of cloud, right? So as we're beginning that cloud migration, it may be that application might, fit itself a little bit better in a co-location environment, right? DDoS is, from a network perspective, going to be inclusive and sort of pre-built into that managed solution that we're providing to the customer. Or if they're in a cloud environment, it's going to be the same thing. It's kind of pre-built in that network. So all of that is connected on a fiber, 100 gigabyte all fiber network, DCI backbone, right? So all of our 40 data centers are connected on that backbone. DDoS mitigation and prevention is going to be, kind of a built-in component within that's as you're riding through that network and as you're enjoying those sort of, hybrid cloud services that take advantage of our abilities to provide sort of co-location and managed cloud for certain parts of their environment. But a lot of times when you're getting outside of those four walls, that's where some of that, can kind of break down a little bit, right? And that's where our remote workforce security assessments can come in and really help clients be a little bit more planful around that, because we've just actually launched, and this is relatively recent, and I'm not sure if my colleague mentioned this, in the previous interview, but we just launched our virtual desktop as a service, right? So that's one way we can help our clients prepare their remote workforce, right? In the ability to deliver a secure and reliable virtual desktop experience right to the very edge of their network, right? So whether it's a dynamic or persistent instance of that virtual desktop, they have the security protocols around it. They know all the data that's being created at the edge is protected. So it's basically that same, from a security posture experience they're getting if they're in one of our managed cloud environments. We're just bringing that, to them in terms of their desktop, right? But a lot of what we're finding is a lot of our clients are ill-prepared to provide security to their remote workforce. So we've actually created some solutions within our professional services organization that can go in and sort of do a consultation around that and help them be a little bit more prepared.
And good point on the consultation, is that something that happens pre-sales? Is that a paid service that happens, if they're looking, how does that engagement look?
Yeah, it's a paid sales engagement. It's a relatively light engagement. A lot of these engagements can be pretty quick and easy to execute. They're usually pre-sale, so they would be very similar and kind of run alongside a lot of the kind of cloud assessments that we can do. So a lot of customers kind of come to us and say, help us to understand what kind of applications can move to the cloud and what kind of applications can't, and what should reside in a co-location, what could go into a cloud environment but might need to be stood up in a hosted private cloud, for example, or what's actually applicable for a hyperscale environment, right? So just like that, we have these corresponding services alongside that that look at it from an IT security posture perspective. So some of the issues that are affecting these remote workers that we address with these remote workforce security assessments is bad actors that are targeting remote workforces, right? So when COVID hit, we saw something like 150 or 200% increase in phishing attacks that were specifically targeting some of these remote workers with very sophisticated phishing scams to try to get them to click and say, hey, click here. We need to, update your Microsoft Teams, password, or they're trying to gain, some access into, the client's network by getting one of the remote users to click on an unauthorized link, right? You have issues when you're dealing with remote workers around like unsecured data transfers, right? Are they using a data device or a transfer protocol that's outside of the corporate firewall and is unsecured, and is that potentially putting their network at risk? You have things like non-organization issued devices, right? So when you're talking about remote workforces, you're talking about a lot of like BYOD, you bring your own device, right? That's what, one of the issues we're trying to address with VDI is at least we can then bring that desktop experience to them in a secure fashion, from behind their corporate firewall that we're managing on their behalf, right? But what are they doing if they're not, signing in through a VPN, and are all their corporate applications architected in such a way that as they, were sort of forced to move to this shelter in place in order to continue to make their remote workers productive, have they been able to kind of re-architect the way in which the network accesses these applications so that, they're able to ensure security, right? So a lot of times these systems aren't, properly designed for a remote workforce.
Right. So, all right, so we've covered a couple good things. We've covered the DDoS aspect of it, right, where you've kind of got this blanket of protection, obviously, that you guys manage. You give them visibility to that, see what's attempting to make it and what you're blocking and doing for them.
Right.
We've talked about the security assessments because we see a lot of that. We see, I don't know where my gaps are. I don't know what applications are ready to be refactored. I don't know how to refactor them. So I like the assessment capabilities there. You mentioned one other component that I want to talk about that you have capabilities on, the IDS IPS. If I'm a customer and I'm moving into a data center, moving into a hybrid strategy, and I obviously know I need some sort of firewall, some sort of perimeter, what capabilities or what hardware do you give them, the option to use from an IDS IPS perspective? What do you do there?
So we use the Alert Logic suite of products, but we added in a managed security service capacity, right? So whether it's things like looking at remote access methods, are they employing zero trust? Are they properly applying single sign-on protocols? What malware technologies are being deployed? So whether that's in our walls, we're able to do that and obviously provide them that controlled security environment. When it's outside of our walls, we can do it from a consultation perspective and make sure that they're kind of properly applying this. But yeah, so typically, we're using the Alert Logic portfolio of products for intrusion detection and intrusion prevention, monitoring it from, our NOC with, kind of 24/7 kind of sort of follow the sun model, so that we're always able to, kind of keep our customers, vital security networks well protected.
So that brings up a good point. I think every customer is different. Some want you to manage everything. Some just say, I want to be alerted. You let me know. We've got a team to handle those things. So when you have a platform like Alert Logic that lets you pull all of that in, and you have the NOC with the dark, the lights are off, the dark screens, and they're everybody's sitting there looking and waiting.
Right.
What's a trend? Do you see more customers coming to you saying, alert us and just let us know and we'll fix it? Or hey, I want you guys to manage this for me as well. What are you seeing trend wise in there?
It's going to depend upon the sophistication of the organization, right? A lot of times it's mostly, hey, just alert us and give us console access, and we're going to remediate appropriately. Or some are looking, if it's a relatively unsophisticated organization, some are looking for that full management suite. I think ultimately you want a cloud managed service provider. If you're thinking about who to partner with in this regard, you're going to want a cloud managed services provider that can do either or, right? They can either give the customer the access to do it themselves, and then it's riding on your infrastructure and your licensed software that's monitoring their environment, but they have full domain access and the ability to remediate as they see fit. And then there's going to be others that are going to say, no, I just want you to manage it all on my behalf and just alert me, but remediate it and let me know how you kind of resolve the issue, right? So we want to be able to tune up and tune down that service layer based on what the customer's requirements are, and a lot of times that's simply going to be dictated by the sophistication of their security organization, right? I mean, we can even go so far, kind of beyond the IDS and IPS part of it into virtual CISO, right? So within our, professional services organization, if they, want to sort of have ongoing C-level security consultation, we can help them in that regard as well.
I like it. There's a lot of things that I want to make sure that people know, right? And get on this. We've covered a lot of ground, right? We've talked about DDoS, we've talked about intrusion detection. We've talked about, I don't know what my posture looks like. I need an assessment of that environment. All wrapped in part of this digital transformation strategy as people are trying to figure out what workloads are cloud ready, what equipment should be in the data center, what should I dispose of, and then in addition to that, I like that you guys not only have you can be the colo portion of it, and if they want to go private cloud, you have your own virtualization stack where they can just spin those and get those VMs from you and have an API right into that environment. So I think what I want to make sure that partners get out of this is that there's a lot of modularity in that. And then to your point, you just kind of put a bow on it of what about when we need somebody to manage the, security is done once and then it needs to be done again and again and again and consistently. So to be able to put a bow on that virtual CISO offering, I would think you probably see people get a ton of value out of that because security is such an evolving landscape.
We do, right? And absolutely. It's an evolving landscape. It's always changing, right? The methods in which these, bad actors are trying to gain access to the network is sophisticated and constantly morphing. And you have to make sure that your service provider is staying abreast of that, right? And picking the right technologies to underpin their services platforms with, and we believe we have there. And another thing to consider too is, from a DRaaS perspective, how able is your cloud managed service provider to help you in a cyber attack kind of malware situation. So making sure that your DRaaS enabled cloud architecture has journaling and kind of rollback capability, right? So we build that in to our DRaaS cloud. So if you're a co-location customer with us, or if you're in our managed cloud, or even if you're not a customer with your production instances in our four walls, we offer a DRaaS cloud, and within that, we offer, it could be as little as a few hours up to as much as 30 days of journaling capability. And that may be important if you have, a cyber attack. A lot of times recovering from that isn't an issue of recovery time and recovery point, which is sort of the key, guides or metrics of how you restore from a disruptive event like that. When you have a cyber attack and you have a Trojan horse or some malware that gets into the system, or the storage is encrypted, and you're dealing with a criminal event in that regard, right? You're going to want to be able to roll back to a certain point in time and be able to restore your systems from a clean state, right? So DRaaS plays a role in that overall security posture, right? Because no system is going to be hardened to where it doesn't have some, points of vulnerability and points of entry. So if that were to happen, right, even if, there may be some instances where it's a bad actor that's an internal employee, right, of the customer whose environment we're hosting, right? You have situations like that. Then you're going to have to be able to respond to that and kind of roll back to a clean state. So you want to make sure that your cloud managed service provider's disaster recovery offering offers you extended journaling, right? It's a good way to protect yourself from a cyber attack.
No, it's a good point. I mean, in a previous life, I've been a customer of Flexentials, put gear in those data centers, and I listen to things like that, and I think if I'm a customer, that feels like a nice warm blanket, right? Because you have to know that you're putting your bread and butter into this facility, right? And so obviously you're going to do that if you know that you've got somebody you can count on and a partner like yourself to really rely on. When I get stuck, or when bad things happen, or when I forgot one piece of my security strategy, inevitably those backups are key. Point. I don't think, we've not seen the attack surface, or we've not seen the attacks on security go down. We've seen them go up. We've seen the costs on what it costs an organization after a breach, the cost per record if they're breached, and those are going up and up. And to your point earlier, and to your virtual desktop play, securing that remote worker is more important than it's ever been. Because if I'm a bad guy, right, back in the lair, I'm just going, there's a ton of new ways that I can now get into companies that before just sat behind the corporate wall and I could never get into. So now more than ever, what you have is so critical into that.
It is, and it's also, I'd like to add too, what COVID is doing is actually making a lot of what we do very trend favorable, right? I'm attached to a lot of opportunities right now where they're looking to consolidate or exit data center businesses altogether, right? If you have a significant percentage of your workforce that's not going to return to an office environment, you may not need a large fleet of corporate real estate any longer, right? And you may be looking to exit out of that corporate real estate. And a lot of times that corporate real estate is going to have a data center attached to it. So if anything, I think what we're seeing right now, one, it sort of tested our networks. It tested our ability to continue to deliver American productivity, over the wire, right? But it's also going to have this longer term impact in, we probably will have a new normal where 10 to 15% of our workforce was virtual before. It might be 20 to 30% now. And you're going to see a lot of that corporate real estate, corporations begin to exit out of that, and they're going to exit out of an on-premise data center that's, typically attached to that. So it's going to, drive a lot of demand for solutions like remote workforce assessments, like, what Flexential can do, or virtual desktop, like what Flexential could do, or maybe just simply moving all of your corporate IT applications into a managed co-location or managed cloud environment. So it's a good time to, kind of be talking to your customers about that, because they're going to have those needs.
So I want to wrap with a couple things here. We'd like to leave our partners with questions, right? I hope that partners watch this and learn a lot more about some of the things that are in your portfolio and how they might apply in situations when they're talking to their prospects. So as we leave them on that thought, what are a couple questions that you think, or a question that they should be asking with regard to anybody looking at this digital transformation strategy? Obviously that opens up opportunity where you guys are a fit. What is there a favorite question you have, or questions that you think good, or are asking to help draw out some of the benefits and some of these security points that you can help with?
Yeah. So I think, specifically around security, what percentage of your workforce was virtual pre-COVID? What percentage of your workforce is going to be virtual post-COVID, right? I think in that particular instance, you're going to see a delta, right? So that's a great question to uncover that. And once you've uncovered that, then you can say, okay, well, how are you ensuring the productivity of that increase in your virtual, your number of virtual employees? That can lead you to conversations around, VDI and virtual desktop deployments, which can be an opportunity to engage Flexential. How are you ensuring that if they're accessing your corporate network through public Wi-Fi's or BYOD, home devices like home laptops or desktop computers, or home routers, things like that. How are you ensuring that data that is transferring across those network devices is safe and secured, right? What level of assurance do you have around that? That's a great discovery question for a remote workforce assessment and how we may be able to develop some recommended security solutions for them. Has this COVID pandemic, caused you to accelerate your migration of your applications to the cloud, right? We're seeing that, a lot from our customers. There was sort of an initial kind of hold on a lot of IT spend during the first couple of months of this, as they were trying to figure out, what that sort of new normal looked like. And now the floodgates are beginning to open, and it's, hey, we do want to be out of the data center business. We don't know that we can get critical personnel where we need to if we have another, COVID kind of event, right? So that's opening up conversations around disaster recovery cloud and cloud migrations and, moving out of the data center business altogether, right? So I think those are a couple of questions. Basically, how has COVID impacted their business model? And what are they doing to support those remote workers because of that? Asking those simple questions, I think, is really going to open up an opportunity to find some incremental business value for your customers.
Good. So last question. When partners are in these opportunities, we talk a lot about digital transformation. We know that takes time, and that we might not be ready for a transformation project right now for whatever customer our partners are talking to. But if over the next 6 to 12 months, in addition to anything that you mentioned so far, is there anything coming from existing products being developed or new things coming down the horizon that you're able to talk about that you want our partners to be thinking about? Hey, look for this to come from us, or think of us in these areas that you might not have thought of before.
Yeah. So we're always doing data center expansions. What you have right there, behind the wall actually is our Hillsboro 3 data center expansion. I think it was something like, 50,000 or 75,000 new square feet came online. We're always expanding our portfolio of cloud services, right? So we've launched a new backup as a service across all of our centers, unifying on a particular backup platform. So, wherever you are within our four walls, we've got a, managed and unmanaged backup solution. I mentioned our virtual desktop solution that we've launched that kind of help customers outside of our four walls and deliver a safe and secure managed desktop to their environment. We're expanding our portfolio within data protection beyond just backup as a service. We've got object-based storage. So we've announced a partnership for a new product development initiative that's rolling out around Wasabi for archival storage. So what's great about that is it uses the AWS S3 protocols for object-based storage for kind of long-term archival perspectives, right? So the use cases there may be around, medical records or legal files or things like that, or certain employee records that need to be maintained, for a long time. You can do that in a very low-cost model, pennies, on the dollar, if you will, right? Very cost competitive to products like Amazon Glacier and so forth. But because of Flexential's unique data center value proposition, we could deliver a hybrid solution where you might have some elements of that application environment stood up within our environment, and then routing our DCI or data center interconnectivity network to that Wasabi cloud environment. You're able to deliver very low latency solutions that would take advantage of very cost effective deep archive storage, right? So those are some of the things that we're kind of working on. that are just starting to come out to kind of help round out our data protection portfolio.
Good. That's a lot of stuff, and we covered some good ground. So look, man, I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on this. Again, Derek Siller, solution architect covering security from Flexential. Derek, appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome resource you can bring in. I encourage you to reach out, bring Derek in for your opportunity. So you've got another video finished up for you today. Hopefully there's a lot of things for you to unpack in here to learn about Flexential. So we look forward to you. And as part of this amazing race, keep watching these. And until next time, thanks, everybody.